Another issue, some of you will be recalling the case of Canterbury Cathedral in 1998, when myself and 6 members of Outrage went to the Easter Day sermon of the then Archbishop of Canterbury, Dr. George Carey. He was on record as supporting legal discrimination against LGBT people. He wasn't merely saying that homosexuality was a sin and that gay people should repent, which would be bad enough. He was actually lobbying members of Parliament and members of the House of Lords to vote against gay equality. Now, we had tried for 8 years to get him to meet with Outrage, or even to meet with the lesbian and gay Christian movement, many of whose members belonged to his own Anglican church. But he refused. He wouldn't meet with LGBT people to address or listen or hear about our concerns. So we felt we had no option. If he wouldn't listen, if he wouldn't open the door, if he wouldn't meet us, we decided we would go to Canterbury Cathedral and challenge him. And we thought, what better day to do it than on Easter Sunday, when all the TV cameras are there, when he's in front of a huge audience. Let's call him out over what he is doing. Now again, we knew that was very risky, that a lot of religious people might find that very offensive. They may think we were being sacrilegious to interrupt a church service. They may think that it was disrespectful to challenge the Archbishop. After all, who are we? He's an Archbishop. But we thought, well, that's a risk worth taking, because we've tried every other way and it hasn't worked. We've asked for a meeting for 8 years, he's slammed the door in our face. He won't even meet fellow Anglicans who are LGBT. So that's why we went to Canterbury Cathedral that Sunday in 1998. Now, we didn't interrupt the sacred parts of the service. We waited until he began his sermon. And then we quietly walked into the pulpit. Some of my colleagues held up placards pointing out that Dr. Carey opposed any recognition for loving, committed same-sex relationships, that he opposed an equal age of consent, that he said same-sex couples were unfit to foster or adopt children, that he said that in certain circumstances employers should have the right to discriminate against people because of their sexual orientation or gender identity. And I simply made a short statement. I pointed out that the Archbishop of Canterbury was sanctioning and advocating legal discrimination against LGBT people. He was saying that we were not entitled to the equal rights and protection enshrined in law. He was endorsing discrimination. And that in my view, discrimination was not a Christian value. Being Easter Sunday, a big civic occasion, there were lots of dignitaries in the front row, including senior officers from the Kent Constabulary, who promptly got up out of their seats and proceeded to wrestle us from the pulpit. I say wrestle, that was literally wrestled. I was at the pulpit speaking, holding onto the pulpit like this, and unbeknown to me, the officers came behind and they put their arms around my waist and gave me, without any warning, gave me this huge yank. So I was holding onto the pulpit, and of course, part of this ancient, beautiful pulpit came apart in my hands. They wanted to do me for criminal damage. Anyway, the cameras showed very clearly that it was not intentional at all. The upshot was that, of course, we got really, really heavily condemned by the right-wing press, the Daily Mail, the Sun, and so on. We were denounced by lots of politicians and religious leaders. They said that it was shameful and obscene that we had interrupted a church service. My response was, what's more shameful? A brief, peaceful, polite interruption of a church service, or an archbishop who's saying the law of the land should deny equal human rights to at least 1 million British citizens because of their sexuality and gender identity. So we rode through that storm, but it was tough. Very, very tough. Again, we got denounced by many in the LGBT community who thought that was too extreme. We got denounced by many people in the Church of England, as well as politicians and the tabloid media. But our view was that was a price worth paying in order to make the point we wanted to do. And indeed, the positive upshot of that protest was that, first of all, George Carey did not stop, but dramatically reduce his active campaigning for MPs and Lords to vote against gay equality. Secondly, he also reluctantly agreed to set up a meeting with the lesbian and gay Christian movement for the very first time, and set up a permanent or semi-permanent dialogue process with the then Bishop of Manchester, Nigel MacCulloch. And on top of that, some other bishops of the Church of England who said they were not aware of what George Carey had been doing, they made public statements in support of LGBT rights, saying as Christians, they believed that all are equal in the eyes of God and that the law should not discriminate. So there were a number of very positive outcomes. But I've got to tell you, for months afterwards, I had hate mail and worse from many, many people who claimed to be Christian and religious. I mean, I was astonished at the scale of hatred and vitriol from people who are supposed to be Christians. But I thought it was worthwhile.